There have been a few movies already that share the same name as the new Apple original thriller series, The Changeling, but from what I've seen so far, this is a totally new story. It stars LaKeith Stanfield and is quite the trip. But will these first 3 episodes have you salivating for more? The Changeling is a fairy tale for grown-ups, a horror story, a parenthood fable, and a perilous odyssey through a New York City you didn't know existed. So there's going to be a total of 8 episodes, with the first 3 dropping at once, and then weekly releases until sometime in October. LaKeith Stanfield plays Apollo. He's this book dealer who kind of resembles a hobo, or maybe just a semi-nomad, but he's intelligent and tenacious. Now he meets a young woman in a library, and then proceeds to try and win her affections, or at least score a date. And from there, this sweeping and intense romance occurs. But there are always hitches to these well-laid plans, right? And Emma, played by Backo, she has an encounter while on a trip. Now, we're kept in the dark about all of the meaning behind her encounter, but she's told to make 3 wishes while she's being given a string bracelet. And then, when that bracelet falls off her wrist, her wishes will come true. This is the start of the mystery and unease that then continues through the next few episodes. And the episodes start off with some humor and comedy. It's silliness that just endears us to the characters and allows us to see glimpses into their budding relationship. There's also a bunch of romance and passion that's displayed, creating a partnership that feels strong, but could have cracks that show up later just simply due to both Apollo and Emma's somewhat traumatic upbringings. Now, the imagery that we're shown in flashbacks is sometimes harrowing and other times sweet, illustrating that life isn't just a series of ups, but it can also contain some deep downs as well. Now, the flashbacks introduce images and sequences that are a bit disconcerting, and they're certainly odd, making the series hedge more into a fantasy type realm, or maybe even a sci-fi or a horror tone. And if you're looking for concrete answers in the first 3 episodes, you're going to come up very short. This is setting up some just crazy story arcs that are filled with brutal and strange actions. And while some of the trajectories you can predict just based on the character behaviors, I was not prepared for what we were shown. The story is able to be devastating, disturbing, and horrific, all while allowing LaKeith Stanfield to be mesmerizing and haunting. And really, Stanfield is haunting and haunted through so much of the first several episodes. As he lowers his already scratchy voice to almost a whisper, there's a wavering and sometimes fierceness that's captivating, drawing me in with careful attention so that I don't miss a single word or even breath sound from him. Now, I think Stanfield is a perfect actor to tackle this role. He's got a ton of charisma, but also feels like an everyman, allowing him to be almost instantly relatable, even if what he's going through defies belief. I love how the lighting highlights the damage that we see in the characters. The coloring of the series, it helps to create this dour or melancholy feeling, using a lot of low-lit settings that are then highlighted by warm but dim orange lighting. And for a bunch of this, there's a brownish hue too, especially in the flashbacks or the sequences that aren't occurring in the direct present. And they do create this past sense. Somewhat sepia-toned, but still very subtle. And when the color palette of the film is complemented by the costume design, the whole thing becomes visually stunning. But again, in a very artistic manner. Occasionally, there are some bright colors that are at play to just highlight a character or maybe their action, but much of the time, the characters wear neutral tones that keep them from breaking out of the somber mood of the narrative. Now, as I said in the synopsis, this is an adult fairy tale. And if you've read most fairy tales, they're not anywhere as bright and cheery as the Disney-fied versions that have almost erased the original works. The themes that are examined here, they're dark. There's a very oppressive and ominous tone that begins to overtake the mood of the story. And I love how it is really present the entire time, but it's kept at bay by the romance and the joy of our characters. And we know that they have thoughts that plague them, but there's also an abrupt change in the atmosphere of the characters that both wowed and shocked me. Now, I really appreciate that while the trajectory was building and obvious, the outcome wasn't. This is some captivating storytelling, using somewhat mysterious characters that create a bond to suck us in and then slam a twist down on us that's sufficiently dramatic and effectively dreadful. And when the end of the episode 3 came, I was like, wait, what? Now, even though only the first 3 episodes are available at the time of this recording, I did watch ahead a little just to see if the show continues with the momentum and the intrigue that it set up. And yeah, you know what? It's even more of a mind F. The pace continues to be driving and intense, adding more mystery while creating emotional chaos for the characters. I am hooked on the show. I really hope it continues delivering these engaging type of episodes. Also, as a fun fact for the show, and also that's a feature of the storytelling, there's a narrator within this. And the show is narrated by the author who wrote the story that this is based on, Victor Laval. Now, he's got an easy voice to listen to, and because this is his story and he knows it so well, the right amount of emotion is delivered, giving us insight into what is happening in the episode and then letting us into the characters' heads that's completely different from hearing their thoughts. I like this inclusion, and it felt like a natural part of the storytelling. Now, so far, the episodes are about 50-ish minutes long, so even when the series transitions to single episodes each week, the time is going to feel sufficient for a weekly watch. Overall, I loved where the story is leading, but am equally unaware of the final destination. The acting is superb, led by LaKeith Stanfield, who encompasses an everyman that is forced to deal with some unimaginable situations. The series balances the horror and traumatic imagery with tender and heartfelt moments that are also offset by highly emotional and memorable story arcs. If the show can nail the landing, this will be yet another powerful hit for Apple, and they already have so many. There's sex, brief nudity, a lot of profanity, and some very brutal and horrific violence. Now, I'm going to hold off on giving this a score, but know that The Changeling is definitely worth checking out, and it could become your next streaming obsession. So, what are you binging right now? Anything that you can recommend to me in the comments? I've gotten a few on my list thanks to some suggestions, but I'm always open to more. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.